All right, so what we are going to end up doing is on page 59 in your notebook, we are going to write the theme format. So if you can go ahead and open up your notebook to page 59, that would be awesome. And then we are going to write the format for theme for Piper, okay? So the last video we talked about how we're going to take this middle one here to use as our theme that we chose, then we're going to explain why, okay? So accepting a challenge can lead to something positive. All right, so what I'm going to do on page 59 is I'm going to write, let's see, we're going to use Piper. You're going to use this next week too. Goodness gracious. Let's write that a little bit better. All right, so you're going to write Piper at the top, and then we're going to write theme. We can underline both of those, okay? And then we are going to write the theme for Piper, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just write the theme first, just so I have it written there so I don't have to keep going back and forth. Actually, you know what? Let's look at what the format says, because maybe I don't need to do that. All right, so on page 28, you're going to see the theme format. Again, this format looks very similar to all the other formats that I end up doing. So make sure that you are looking at this format on page 28 to help you. I'm going to be referring back to this multiple times throughout this video, okay? All right, so looking at this format, everything in black font, I'm going to write no matter what. If it is in a different colored font or if it's underlined and bold, I am going to have to figure out what I'm going to put in that spot, okay? There's an example over here, so if you want to read that, you can. I'm not going to take the time right now to do that, but you can read that if you would like. All right, so it says the theme of blank is, and then it says to write the theme. So I'm going to go ahead and just write this. So I'm going to say the theme. Oh, my lead broke. The theme of Piper is, and I'm going to just write down what it is. And I already have it on my screen over here. It's a little tiny, but that's okay. The theme of Piper is accepting, and yes, you should be writing this, accepting a challenge can lead to something positive. Okay? And again, if you need to pause on any of these videos because I'm going too fast, you can do that. All right, so the theme of Piper is accepting a challenge can lead to something positive. All right, so I've said what the theme is. So just because I said what the theme is doesn't mean that I am done. I have to explain why I think that's the theme. Okay, so I'm going to go back to page 28 and look at this. It says, in the beginning of the, and this was a video, so we could say movie or just piece, it doesn't matter, just anything that it is. I'll probably use the word video since it was a video, or you could even say story. In the beginning of the story, maybe I'll use story. I think I'm going to do that. All right, so in the beginning of the story, and then it says evidence from the beginning, probably the conflict, okay? More than likely it's going to be the conflict. So I'm going to write in the beginning of the story, so go back to page 59, and you're going to write this. So in the beginning of the story, back to the format, what does it say? Okay, and then it says evidence from the beginning, probably the conflict. All right, so in the beginning of the story, so I'm going to go to the conflict. And I already have this right here. We've already done this. We've done the story elements, so I can just look at this. Piper wants food, but the food was next to the waves that crashed him down, and he was scared. Perfect. I'm just going to write that. So in the beginning of the story, and I'm going to write my conflict. Okay? All right. Piper wanted food, but the food was next to the waves that, I'm going to change my conflict a little bit because it's a little wordy. I'm going to say the food was next to the waves that scared him. So that's all. I'm going to say that, okay? That scared him. Okay? All right. So far, I'm doing all right. So in the beginning of the story, Piper wanted food, but the food was next to the waves that scared him. Okay? So I put that conflict in there. And if you need to pause, pause. And you can continue writing that down. I'm going to go ahead and move on now. All right. So we go back to the format. And then it says, in the end, and it says evidence from the end, probably the R2C or the R2S. Okay, so R2C is resolution to conflict. R2S is resolution to story. And again, I have both of those things in my story elements chart over here. Okay, so I'm going to choose the one that kind of goes best with my theme in the sense of what it says. So let's see. In the end, I forgot what I was going to say. I got to go back to my format. That's why the formats are really nice. In the end, okay, so in the end, and I think it just said to go to the R2S or the R2C. Yes. Okay, so in the end, Piper got food. Piper fell asleep next to a pile of shells in his nest. All right. Well, my theme is accepting a challenge can lead to something positive. And the positive thing for him, I feel, or for him or her, whatever pronoun you use, Piper, I'll just say Piper. So the something positive, I feel like, is that he got food, right? So he accepted that challenge because it led to him getting food. So I feel like the R2C, the resolution to conflict, ties in more with the theme than Piper fell asleep next to a pile of shells in his nest. Okay, so when you get to this portion, you're going to have to look at both the R2C, resolution to conflict, and the R2S, resolution to story, and see which one falls in line better with the theme that you chose. Okay, so in the end, Piper got food. And if I want to, I can kind of elaborate a little bit on this. I don't want to write like the whole story. I don't want to have a summary. But I can write more of this. Like if you're like, well, that's not very much. In the end, Piper got food. Okay, great. But you could even say Piper got food. And since I said he was scared of the waves, I could say he wasn't scared anymore. Okay, so Piper got food and wasn't scared of waves any more. Okay. All right. Awesome. Again, if you need to pause, you can pause. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. I'm going to look back at page 28 to see what I have. All right. So then this is the part that you have to explain why this is the theme. Yes, you have your evidence from the actual video, but we also want to base it off of our own background knowledge, which is where an inference comes from. Okay, so usually when, and it says general situation based on theme. All right, so usually when okay, oh, you can't see that, sorry. Is this like zoomed in? There we go. Goodness gracious. All right, so Piper got food and wasn't scared of the waves anymore. Usually when, so I have to go back to the general situation. So I'm going to go back to this format just to make sure I'm saying this correctly. General situation based on theme. All right. So usually when, let's see. I kind of want to say someone. So usually when someone is faced with a challenge, Usually when someone is faced with a challenge, how do I want to say this? Sorry, I'm a little lost for a second. All right, so usually when someone is faced with a challenge, and is determined to overcome it. I know this is a lot. I apologize, but this is how we need to explain our theme. Okay? So usually when someone is faced with a challenge and is determined to overcome it, so you're going to see why I'm using those words here in just a second. So I'm going to go back to this format. It says, like when, what happened in the story. Okay? So I'm going to say, like when Piper had to get food by himself even though he was scared. Okay, so I'm taking back on what happened in the actual story. Okay, so I'm going to say this again. So usually when someone is faced with a challenge and is determined to overcome it, like when Piper had to get food by himself even though he was scared, going back to the format, again, if you need to pause, you can pause. It means the theme is, and I'm going to say my theme again, okay? So it means the theme is, I'm going to rewrite my theme, which is up here, accepting a challenge can lead to something positive. All right. I know that's a lot, and it looks like a lot of writing. But if you look at it, you're actually only having 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences. That last sentence is a big sentence. All right, so here I'm going to read this to you to kind of make sure that it makes sense. And you want to make sure that when you do your theme that it makes sense to you. So make sure you read it. All right. The theme of Piper is accepting a challenge can lead to something positive. In the beginning of the story, Piper wanted food, but the food was next to the waves that scared him. In the end, Piper got food and wasn't scared of the waves anymore. Usually when someone is faced with a challenge and is determined to overcome it, like when Piper had to get food by himself, even though he was scared, it means the theme is accepting a challenge can lead to something positive. Okay, so that's me saying, hey, this is the theme and this is why. I use information from the story, but I also use my own background knowledge and put them together to create that inference of what the theme is. Okay? All right, so make sure you take a picture of this on page 59, and you're going to put that on the next slide. So make sure you do that, and you'll paste it right here. And then we will do the next thing together. All right? Awesome.